This conference will now be recorded.
I have 7 o'clock.
It is 7 o'clock. Do we want one person to say the Pledge of Allegiance, or do we all want to say it at the same time?
I say one.
All right. Does anyone want to lead, or do you want me to lead? I'll go ahead and lead tonight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if we can, we'll call the meeting to order and roll call, please.
Graham?
Here.
Mr. Kimes?
Here.
Is Mr. Kimes here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Malagranda?
Here.
Mr. McKinnon?
Does it?
Ms. Morgan?
Present.
O'Rourke?
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. We are allowed to meet remotely, allowed by statute and the continued declaration of emergency by Governor Pritzker. We do not need to discuss absent the trustee. And if we can go on to disclosure of any conflict of interest, does anyone have any conflict with any of the items tonight? Okay, hearing none. If you do, just let me know. Any changes to the agenda tonight? If there's no changes to the agenda, a motion to approve the agenda.
Mike McKinnon will move.
Jeremy Graham.
I'll second.
Mr. Kimes, okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, that's approved. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We could have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to
Mike
approve,
McKinnon
Julie.
will move.
All right, we have Mrs. O'Rourke, the motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Mike McKinnon.
All right, thank you, Mr. McKinnon. So Mrs. O'Rourke with the motion, Mr. McKinnon with the second, and we'll need a roll call, please.
I didn't hear who seconded.
Mr. McKinnon,
Well, who did the motion then?
Mrs. O'Rourke.
Okay, roll call.
Yes, please.
Mr. Graham?
Yes. Yes.
Kimes?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
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 Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes. Yes, if you called O'Rourke.
Well, I'll do that, but I gotta go back to Morgan. I never heard from her.
I said yes twice.
I don't know, Frank.
Sally must have a bad connection or something, because I can hear them all fine.
Yeah, each one responds clearly. So Sally, you're having some type of internet connection issue. Because each one responds.
You want me to hang up?
If you want to call in, that might be easier rather than trying to do the video. You might have a better connection calling in. If that works for you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Sally.
I can hear you now.
All right, and then I think you hadn't heard from Lori, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, I said yes. Sally, I think it's because
Okay.
we're on MediaCom. It can only support one of us on the internet on the same street at a time, you know.
I'm sorry.
No, I think
That's
you're
what I
right.
got.
I tried to log into a zoning board meeting from home and I couldn't do it very well, so that's why I come to the village office.
Well, I can get out if you'd rather.
No, you're fine right now.
Okay.
Sounds crystal
Go
clear.
for it. Okay.
And then do you still have Mrs. O'Rourke? Or did
I
you
do.
hear-
I got her. I heard her before.
Okay, so that's approved. We had got Cliff sign up for public comment, but she no longer needs to, so that's taken off. And then we'll go on to Public Works.
Okay, you've got the, well, I guess Kelly, did the minutes actually get into the package? I don't remember seeing them.
They are on the internet, yes.
Okay. If they weren't in the packet and you want to see, we did have a meeting last week, Monday, and so all the topics that were discussed are highlighted in the Public Works minutes, which are on the internet. So the only action item that we have from Public Works is a pay request for civil constructors. We had previously approved an amount, for road repairs and maintenance in the amount of $87,922.20. The majority of this work is completed, however, is not 100% completed. We are still waiting for the fog seal to be completed for the chip and seal. We also ended up having some additional repair work, maintenance work done that was not originally in the scope of this project. We had some storm sewer repairs that we needed to do by the scoop. We also had some work that needed to be done on West Main and West Swift. This was not in the original approval. These would have normally been separate maintenance items. However, since Civil was on site in the village, we were able to get them to do those repairs at the same unit pricing, but it is going to throw the amount of the repair up a little bit. We had a repair over for the storm sewer over by the scoop in the amount of about $3,500. We also had some road work to be doing over on West Main, just west of Swift, which is another $2,000. And then the unit prices over in Willingham were just slightly over the estimate. So at this point, everything has been done, less the fog seal. The original approval was for $87,922. The total, once all work is completed, is probably going to be closer between $93,500 to $95,000. But at this point, civil engineer has submitted an invoice to us for work completed in the amount of $82,057.59. They have held back retainage for work that has been completed at $4,102.87. So they are looking for a current payment of $77,954.22. And I would like to make a motion that we will approve that amount, funding $50,000 from account number 0142-520 and $27,954.22 funded from 0142-514. Also, probably about 30 minutes ago, if any of you had an opportunity to check the email, I did email each of you the pay request that Fairgram had put together for us.
Mike, I just need to clarify something. When you read the numbers, two of the sets of numbers were just off by like 30 cents or something like that. So I just want to go over the numbers because I did print out that email that you sent. And the total value of completed work that I show on that document is $82,057.39. I think you had read into the record 59 cents. So
I did. So okay, so we'll correct that.
And then we have the balance due on completed work, $77,954.52 is what is written down here. So anyone that's listening to the recording can follow the exact numbers. But you are correct. They're deducting the retainage of $4,102.87.
Thank you for clarifying that, Frank.
You're welcome. Do we have any, so is that coming from committee, Mike?
No, that is not.
Okay, so we need a motion. Are you making the motion, Mike?
Yep, I am making the motion.
And then we need a second.
I will second. Jeremy Graham.
I don't know who.
Mr. Graham. And then any discussion on this?
Mike, can you tell me what was the first account number you mentioned? I got the 514, but what was the first one?
42-520.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason why we're slating him in that is all work is completed that would fit under that account. The other one is where the open balance of work remains. So that's why I'm choosing to request that they be paid in these account numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional discussion?
I just want to ask one thing. When you make a motion or whatever, tell me your name because I can't always recognize the voice.
Mike McKinnon made the motion.
Yeah, I got that, but I didn't get Graham until after. I'm sorry.
No problem.
That's a good practice, especially when you can't see the screen.
Yeah, I can't see.
Any other discussion? There's no further.
You ready for roll call?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kimes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
All right, that's unanimously approved. Anything else from Public Works?
Nope, that's it from Public Works.
All right, thank you. We do have the engineer's report. Any questions for the engineer, or Seth, do you have anything that you think we need to know about in particular?
Possibly any update or time frame on the grant application? What time outlook are we looking at on that?
Yeah, I was just going to let you guys know that you'll see a copy of the grant in the next couple days. But the grant was submitted on June 30th, or prior to June 30th. We made the deadline there. And not anticipated that we're going to hear about any award on that for several months, because what we submitted was not the fast track grant. We were just submitting the regular Rebuild Illinois grant, so we're anticipating hearing back on that probably, I would say, likely September.
And anything for the engineer?
We could speak for now.
Okay. All right, thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
We'll go on to community development.
All right, so I got quite a bit to cover here. Let's start out with number one. And this is the code enforcement ordinances, Casper's report. He got a request from Chad Insco to inspect and to take care of and the bushes and the trees and one alley and cut back and remove the brush and the bushes and so forth. And also at 211 South Pecatonica, a tree. I had talked to him within the last couple days, and all these have been taken care of to his satisfaction. There was one particular problem. He isn't here. I don't know whether the chief of police would like to enter anything into on behalf of the Casper and himself on the one particular individual. If they do, that's fine. But everything, as far as I am concerned, has been taken care of. Okay. So, Chief White, do you have anything to add on that?
The business that accesses the alleyway there between Peck and Seward, or Pecatonica and Swift.
Yeah, Swift.
I mean, I haven't had a chance to talk to the owner of the business yet, but I will do that. Basically what it was, some complaints about the newest motorcycle shop that was doing business there using that alleyway. So I haven't had a chance to get to talk to him, but I will have that conversation. I think it was kind of a frustrating event by the homeowner that lives there. And I believe she came in to see me to vent, concerned about why some things got done, why other things did not. So I've still got to take care of speaking to the business owner, but I think there's not much we can do with that as long as they're abiding by the rules.
Okay, I just wanted to put that in. Thank you very much, Chief White. Number two, approval of the ordinance establishing duties and compensation of the building official. You did receive from Mary a copy of that ordinance. Mary, is there anything that you would like to bring up about that new ordinance?
Okay, now, and just to let you know, this was on the internet, and this was later in the day, just along with the Public Works Committee minutes. So I'll just go over it because it's very short. Just to be clear, we already had done the ordinance initially establishing the duties and compensation of the village building official, you'll recall. We had done that in April. Then in May, there was an oral discussion about what the effective date would be in terms of when that schedule would come into place, and that was decided at that meeting. There was some language change that would indicate, I'm just looking here, for any permits written on or after April 1, 2020, the new fee structure would be in effect. As you'll recall, I apparently misunderstood what the intent was, and that payments for permits written prior to April 1, 2020, but inspected after April 1, 2020, will not be split with the village. That was done on a roll call vote, but we didn't have an ordinance associated with that. So I thought for clarity, when I did this new ordinance to establish the building and related permit and inspection fees, because that's really what this is, I did make reference to that particular change that was being made previously that was now being memorialized in this new ordinance. The purpose of this new ordinance would be to establish the building and related permit and inspection fees. You'll recall we had done the ordinance, like I said, establishing the duties and compensation of the village building official. But subsequent thereto, and Trustee McKinnon and I know the community development has been working for some period of time on getting a schedule of how this breakdown would take place. Trustee McKinnon had done a listing that we discussed at some prior meetings, and at the last meeting, no one had any changes. Now, I did note that there were a couple of places where there were some blanks, and I did go back and listen to the minutes to make sure that we didn't have anything new that had been added and there wasn't. So what I did is I took that listing and I gave it a title of Building and Related Permit and Inspection Fee Schedule. I gave it a date of July 13th of 2020 and attached it as an exhibit to this ordinance establishing the building and related permit and inspection fees. Because it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that what is listed in here as far as how the compensation is to be paid is for the building official, the building inspector, and then of course the electrical and the plumbing inspector fees, and how that breakdown is going to be between the village and the given inspector. So it's not going to be on a 2/3, 1/3 anymore as to the village building official, but rather it's going to be as is spelled out in the schedule. First of all, I just want to clarify, is that correct? And I guess I direct that to Trustee McKinnon, so I know I've understood it.
That was my intent. Now, again,
Okay.
that was me as an individual. We didn't have a motion or an acceptance by the entire trustee board at this point.
Right, but what we had discussed at a prior meeting is we discussed that schedule, and there was an opportunity for people to ask for input at one meeting, and then at the last meeting, at least my notes, and then what I listened to on the video again, was that everyone seemed to be at that point conceptually in favor of that concept. So that's why what I did in drafting this ordinance, I indicated, and I'm just going to go over it quickly because I know maybe not everyone had the opportunity to look at it. The ordinance itself is short, but then the rider is what everyone had previously seen. So I indicated that whereas in the past there'd been various building permit and related permit fees charged in the village by the village building official with a schedule for the same that had been established by the village building official, and whereas there have also been inspection fees charged for services by the village building inspector and for village plumbing inspector and electrical inspector services, and that whereas in the interest of clarity, consistency, and transparency, the village board of trustees believes it to be in the best interest of its citizenry for a formal permit and inspection fee ordinance to be adopted by the village, so it's clear to all as to the amounts to be paid, and the village can ensure there is proper accounting for all funds received. So then the part that now is being adopted is that building, section 1 would cover building and related permit fees, including builder inspector fees, and then separate electrical and plumbing inspection fees. And I worded it that way so there wouldn't be confusion, because I think in the past, I know for me, there's been some confusion of where and how the inspector fees fit in. And so for the building inspector, it was previously explained by Trustee McKinnon that in these numbers, we have the fees for the building inspector, but for the plumbing inspector and the electrical, those would be listed separately. So I indicated that what was being adopted was what is listed in Exhibit A, and that was in essence the listing that Trustee McKinnon had done. I just gave it a date and a title, and I figured everyone was familiar with what was listed in there, and then it would be easy in the event that we needed to change it or amend it so that some of those other areas that maybe didn't have anything listed on it, then it could be covered, and it would just be a matter of putting a new exhibit with a new date. I did indicate that for any area listed for which no fee amount is listed, no amount is being charged at that time, as the particular subject matter is under review and may be amended at a later date. And that the listing describes the allocation between the amount to be received by the respective official or inspector for the particular service listed, and then the amount to be received by the village as an administrative fee. That allocation, such allocation supersedes any allocation policy or practice currently in effect and shall become effective as of the effective date of this ordinance listed below. I did make the effective date August 1 of 2020 because there had been discussion at a prior meeting that we didn't want people who had gotten building permits to suddenly get a bill for an additional amount. I did provide too in the second one that we were memorializing that prior amendment made as to what was the effective date for when that policy of the 2/3, 1/3 would take place. Even though this ordinance would be changing that, I did feel it was necessary to somewhere memorialize what had been decided, even if it's being changed now. Because as you know, we've had some issue in many past years where we were trying to figure out what was said at one point in time and trying to piece together minutes. So that's why I have put in here basically that we previously had passed ordinance 2020-07. That was the one establishing the duties and compensation of the village building official. That was done on April 14th. On May 11th, that was the change was made that I previously read about when that time, when it would take place as far as when the new fee structure would be in effect, and that indicating that via this section that change is memorialized retroactive to its May 11, 2020 passage date, but only to the extent that such language does not conflict with any new payment structure that we're covering in this ordinance. Then in section 3, it indicates in essence, we're finally ready to revoke ordinance number 400. That was the ordinance that you may recall listed a whole bunch of things together. That had to do with the duties and compensation of the village building official. It also had covered the adoption of certain codes, and it also listed certain fees. So we thought it would make much more sense to separate those. And so now that, provided this ordinance is passed, and this covers now everything that ordinance 400, the subject matters had covered, that we would be ready to revoke ordinance 400 in its entirety. And then, as I previously mentioned, this ordinance would be effective on August 1 for the reason I previously mentioned, and then it would be posted in 3 places. So that's the gist of this ordinance, should you wish to adopt it.
Thank you very much, Mary. Very informative. Okay, what we're looking for first is an ordinance to approve the new ordinance establishing building and related permits and inspection fees. And this does come from committee.
Well, it's come from committee, but we haven't approved it in its current format, so I will make a motion to approve the ordinance as drafted.
Thank you,
And I will second it.
All right, Mr. Kimes, second.
Yes.
All right, any discussion?
You want a number?
This is Dick Medeiros.
Hold on, Mr. Medeiros. Yes, Sally, can you give us the number, please?
2020-08.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Medeiros?
My question is what are the numbers in this ordinance? I haven't seen it, so I don't know what we're talking about here.
She has an Exhibit A that has, just for instance, it has roof replacement for residential. It has a total amount of $65 for the permit. And then it's broken down into columns where the village receives $25, the building inspector receives $35, the building official receives $5. And so they're all listed out like that, where we have electrical inspections, such as a service new upgrades up to 200 amps. It's a $75 permit with 45 going to the electrical inspector, 30 going the building, the village getting $25, and then the building official receiving $5. So all of the permit fees are set out so that the building official receives a certain amount. The building inspector may receive a certain amount, such as new construction, or up to $50,000. Just for an example, the building official will receive $35, the building inspector $180, the village $50, for a total of $265 for building total, and then electrical $180 and plumbing $240 for a total of $685 for that kind of a permit. So it's broken down so we know exactly how much each department or I guess department is receiving. So
okay, well, my question here is, if you've got, I previously stated that the roofing, for instance, a roofing permit should be at $75. When the village board decided to go the 1/3, 2/3 split, which would mean I would get $50, the village board would get $25. And we've written 650 plus permits on roofs alone in the last couple of months. By not doing that, the village revenue would have been upped by almost $6,000 in that time frame. So that's just a question I have about it. I mean, and I'm thinking that with these numbers, it's even less. It's $65, and I'm writing all the permits, which 650 plus permits in the last month and a half or 2 months, and plus with the work that Carrie's doing, to get those, to receive those permits, get them to me. I write them, I turn them back to her. She make sure that the contractors are paying their fees. And, so that's my question about that number. And I guess, if I'm writing a permit and I'm getting $33.34 to write the permit and do the physical inspection, whereas if I write a $50 permit for the electrical inspector or the plumbing inspector, then they're getting $40 right now, minimum, per inspection. So that's my question on that point. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So,
anything else? Yeah. Any other questions?
if there's no other discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Keim?
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
It's approved. All right, that's approved. Now we're going to also have a discussion under number 3, the revoking of ordinance 400. Although that it already has been in effect, Mary, could you please explain that one?
That we did discuss that, Trustee Kimes, that was included, although it wasn't in the title, it was included in the ordinance we just passed. That was one of the sections to revoke that in its entirety, since it has now, all the sections of that have been covered in other ordinances. So,
Thank
so
you.
that's done.
So it is legally revoked.
Correct. And in
Thank you very
hindsight, I would have put it in the title. I thought of that later, but it definitely is revoked because it's contained in one of the sections.
All right. Thank you so very much.
I'm going to interrupt, Don. We do have a new caller called in. If you could identify yourself, please.
This is Carrie.
Hi, Carrie. Thank you for letting us know. I'll put your name in here.
You're welcome. I didn't want to interrupt.
Nope, that's fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Okay.
So number 3 is the revoking of the ordinance 400 is officially revoked, correct?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so very much. Number 4, the solar electric system code enforcement ordinance and inspection requirements. How are we doing on that one?
I can tell you that I am working on that one now that things are done with the issues we had for the Benton Street and all of that. We will have that by the next meeting. And I'll have it, of course, for community development first.
Okay, thank you so very much, Mary. That's number 4. Number 5, garbage contracts. I know, Frank, have you got any input on that, or is anybody else as far as the garbage contracts?
I do. I have messaged back and forth with Josh at Gills, and he'll be on vacation. We're going to try and get together sometime the 1st or 2nd week of August.
Okay, good. As far as I understand, the garbage contract goes out either in September or October. Is that correct?
I think it's through December.
That is correct.
Oh,
December,
that's great. Well, we'll look forward to hearing from you next month on the ballots. Okay, the mulch for the playground. The approval of the expense. I approved $2,000 for that. Mike or Chad can help it. Some sort of a rubberized what they put down on that. And was that enough to cover what you needed, Chad?
It will be, yes. The full truck would be 80 to 90 yards of playground approved mulch. Just real quick, we talked about Public Works. Due to the playgrounds being closed, we didn't move, and for financial reasons, we didn't move, but the playgrounds are audited by our insurance carriers. I know for a fact they would not pass the audit if they were inspected today. It is the year that we would have asked for mulch earlier in the spring, but with COVID, it was delayed. At this time, we would like to go ahead and do it as phase 4 opened up playgrounds. So that's typically what our dollar amount was. The vendors took a little longer to get it. We had some set aside, but that was sold prior to me getting approval. So we did have to get it direct from the factory or from the grinding company. We do expect it tomorrow or the next day, and we'll get the parts covered.
Hey, do we have to have it re-inspected then?
The insurance folks just come as they please and send us a letter if it doesn't pass.
Oh, okay, because I walked through it here.
The mulch itself has to be inspected for quality control. There is a particular mulch. You can't buy decorative mulch. It has to pass a certain sieve to be approved for playground quality. And we will have that paperwork accompanying the bill of lading when the mulch is delivered.
Okay, that would be just great. I walked through it and I didn't see anything that was cracked or broken. Did you?
I have not.
Okay, neither have I. So
We haven't
I
already
guess
taken care
it's good to go. Okay. Okay, that's good. So that's
This was
been taken care
approved
of.
prior?
What?
This was approved previously?
No, I just approved it, because I can spend up to how many thousands? I just approved the $2,000, but I want to have board approval of it.
So are we going to do a motion?
We're gonna do a motion. I'm gonna make the motion. Needs a second.
You got an account?
$2,000.
From what account?
What was it, Mike? Sally?
Yeah?
Sally Bennett,
Sally Bennett.
possibly no.
Sorry, of course I walked away.
Sorry.
The amount of $2,000 for the playground, mulch. You know what the number was on the account? That we pulled $2,000.
That is usually from 17-47. My pages are backwards. I believe it's 911 community expenses.
Okay. All right. Who seconded it?
Mike McKinnon will second the motion.
Thanks,
Actually,
Sally.
I'd like to correct that to 912 community projects.
All right.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have to have a roll call vote, or we have to because we spend money, right?
Mr. McKinnon?
Joe.
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Kime?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
Okay, that's approved. Thank you so very much. And under new business, we're going to open for discussion, put it on the agenda for the next either COW meeting, which will be coming up, and that is the sidewalks, the driveways, and the curb cuts, and some curbs and gutter. We're going to open it up. And so if anybody has a chance to want to think about something about what we should do with certain those certain particular concerns, and I'm sure that and I'll ask Mike this, did the curb cuts and everything that were approved under the last meeting, did that go through okay?
They have been taken care of, yes.
Okay, thank you so very much. That's under new business. I don't have any other new business. Anybody have any new business under community development?
No, I think we're good, Mr. Kimes.
Okay, thank you so very much. Thank you, Frank.
All right, we'll move on to village attorney, and it looks like we've covered both items.
That is correct. I just had them on there just to make sure they got covered somewhere.
Yep, exactly. Thank you. We'll move on to finance committee.
All right, for finance, we continue to watch the budget very closely in light of COVID, and I can tell you that we're running about 50,000 under budgeted revenues year to date now, so we're starting to feel the impact of the COVID months, so to speak. I think originally when we looked at this, we thought between 100 and 120,000 we would fall short of our revenue projections for the year. So I think the committee would say that we're probably falling right into line, although this is a very fluid situation, as you all know. I think I saw one economy, I think it was California, was closing completely all over again. So this isn't over yet, but I would say 120,000 revenue shortfall could really be our reality at a minimum. But and the good news is on the expense side, I think things are looking really good too. So again, I want to commend the staff for really watching expenses and controlling what we can control, which is that side. We can't really control the revenues at this point. Does anybody have any questions on anything in particular with the budget and where we stand?
Just a quick update regarding that. I know that the Cures Act has been passed, and the DCEO has the ability to provide funds to each municipality. And I know that Kelly and I don't know if Mary had the opportunity to attend the seminar, but they are letting us know how we can apply for reimbursement for expenses we've incurred as a village for COVID-19 specific expenses. So we might be able to reimburse what we've spent on those things, which may be helpful.
Yeah, hopefully
The
we can get
total
some.
amount that we're allowed is approximately 127,000, but it's not just here's 127, you put it where you want. You have to apply and make sure that you fit within that.
And we will be having some office expenses that weren't anticipated too, with some of the damage to the roof and the walls and all of that. But we're working through those issues to try to see what we can do there, but necessary. Also, I want to commend Sally for getting all the bank reconciliations up to date. She's smiling big if everybody sees her online. She says COVID was good to her. So we're now up to date on everything. So that feels very good for Sally too, I'm sure. On the banking services proposal, I'm going to need some help here because we had a proposal for First National, a renewal essentially. Frank, I did get your email that you already signed the basically the federal home loan that would serve as collateral, it looked like, for our deposits. But now German American would want to come in and do a proposal to see if they could win our business. So the committee was okay with listening to German American. I just don't know, with you signing that collateral agreement, does that matter?
I don't think that matters because it's what's being put up as collateral. The concern I have is the last conversation when we met with First National Bank and Trust, we also went out to discuss with German American State Bank and anybody else that would talk to us. And we were told by First National Bank and Trust, all right, we're going to come back with our best and final offer. We thought we were giving you a good offer before, but if you go out to do it again, all things are off the table. You may not get the same deal. So I'm just giving that caveat that if they understand that we're going out to German American State Bank to compete, they may take away what they're giving us. They may not, but they may. It depends how they want to react. So I just want to put that out there that we may have that response from them.
Well, Sally, I'm assuming you'll know what they're, quote, giving us, because the proposal was pretty minimal as far as what they said. So I don't know what we're losing. But we could talk about that offline. I don't know if we need the whole board time for that conversation. You good with that, Sally?
Yes, we do have a new agent that we're working with at First National. And I reached out to her today because she was asking for the signed service agreement. And I explained that because we've been with First National for so many years, that our committee felt that for due diligence reasons, we needed to get some alternative quotes, and that I could let her know, in a month where we're at in the process. And she replied, cordially. So I don't believe that they will try to react negatively if we do that. So that's my input.
Thank you, Sally. And I do see it as a different person, so that could be the difference as well.
This is Mike McKinnon. I got one.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I got what? Well, the only thing I'm looking at is just to make sure that if we do go with this and their proposal, that we actually have a clarification. The third bullet point is indicating that interest-bearing account above the 200,000 will be at the federal funds rate minus 30 basis points. Well, right now the federal funds rate is about 25 basis points. So does that mean zero, or does that mean we are going to be paying them when the federal funds rate is less than that 30 basis points?
Yeah, right.
It's the current deal that we have now, just renewed. So nothing will change from the deal that we have now to the new one.
So the only thing is the federal funds rate may have been sufficient enough to cover the 30 basis points they're taking away, where maybe presently it's not.
Right. So Sally, what he's saying is it's a negative interest rate, basically. We would pay them to take our money with the terms that are outlined in that.
So we would need to have in there the term that says the Wall Street Journal Fed funds rate minus 0.30% or 0%, whichever is, or no more than 0%, something like that, just so we don't go negatively.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll work on that.
Okay.
We have Gills on here too, just because Sally brought that to finance, to have finance just aware of the terms and the contract. And I believe what I saw in there, I think that was a 7-year deal, if I remember right. Wasn't it? I'm pretty sure. But anyway, we didn't do anything other than review it to kind of get a feel for the terms and what they negotiated in different areas and so forth, and wanted to make sure it was discussed tonight. So we just put it on finance as well, but I guess it's already been covered.
Yeah. And it was signed on December 9th of 2013, so it is a 7-year deal, Julie, you're right.
Okay. Okay, that's what I thought. As far as liquor license renewals, number 4 on the our agenda, Sally just wanted the board to know that she's already processed some. And Sally, I don't recall how many you've done.
They've all been turned in. All the current license holders have turned them in. I can't remember how many that is.
Okay, so the renewals are all done in and secured. Number 5 on our agenda, we were notified by our rep at Nicor Gas that we've got a couple of different options. Sally, I know you sent something out shortly before this meeting, and we'll talk probably in next finance about it. But one of them, the municipal buildings get a certain number of therms that they can use basically for free. And Sally, correct me if I'm saying something wrong. This is new to us, but if we don't use them all in the year they're afforded to us, we just basically give them up. You can't roll them over. And we're basically using 2,000 fewer therms than we're allowed under this arrangement. So there is an alternative out there where we can get cash and kind of have for all intents and purposes, a credit running, and then we run the risk. If we overuse them, we have to pay more. We'd have to look at a longer term history of usage, Sally, before we decide. I know the last year we used 2,000 fewer therms than we were granted. So if that's a regular with us, I think it's something we probably should at least look at and see if that makes any sense to go the other route. But we would just want to look at some history and gather the facts. So that's something we'll be doing. And then there's an alternative to apply a municipal tax, but I tie that right into number 6 on the agenda, which I know I emailed Frank about too. It just seems like each board meeting, more and more things are coming up, whether it was Mike's curbs or then I think Chad had the drainage issues, or somebody did the month before. And I just think we're at a point where maybe we need to do some more strategic planning, thinking about what does the village need from a maintenance perspective and what does it need from a growth perspective before we lunge into a municipal tax for Nicor Gas. Let's figure out what are our needs and how are we going to fund them. And you go to a tax if you need to, is my thought. Again, just opening that up for discussion. It's probably worthwhile to go through a session, and maybe now isn't the perfect time, but probably something we need to do.
I agree, Julie. I think it's time for us to do something like that. It's been a long time since we've done a strategic plan looking at that. What we've done in the past is we've actually set aside a special board meeting time to just focus on that particular issue. So we can put it on the agenda for next month just to figure out, okay, we can talk a little bit more about it next month and figure out when do we want to meet and how do we want to go forward with that.
Yeah, like I said, I hate to just implement a tax for tax sake. Let's figure out what we need money for, how we're going to fund things, and put a bigger plan together.
Yep, that makes sense. Anything else for finance?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to police committee.
Okay, we did have a meeting planned for last week, but due to technical difficulties, we had to cancel that meeting. So Basically, this is going to be like our committee meeting here. We did have Chief White, Training Officer Nick Half, and myself did interview a part-time candidate. His name is Richie Macias. Am I right on that, Chief?
Yes, Richie Macias.
Right, and he is a full-time Rockford firefighter and also a certified police officer. I believe the interview. It's Richard.
R-I-C-H-I-E. Is his
Right.
proper name?
Macias, M-A-C-I-A-S.
Okay. And Richie is his proper name.
I'd call him Richard. He likes to be called Richie.
I think we better have the proper name in the minutes.
Right. We'll go with the.
Yeah, Richard.
Thank you.
That interview went really well. Chief, you want to give some more insight on him?
Yeah, Mr. Macias was 2 years with the Sheriff's Department before he switched over to the fire service with Rockford. He is certified. He's had 2 years with the Sheriff's Department, like I said, and he knows what he's getting into. He knows what he's doing. It's just a matter of getting him in here, getting him a little bit of training on our systems, and then I think we can get him up and running fairly quickly. Due to his firefighter schedule, I believe that leaves him open for some availability due to his 24 hours on and 48 off. I believe he's a good candidate. It's just a matter of everyone being in agreement. We believe he could fill some of our gaps that we have after about a month and a half of some intensive or field training.
Okay. I'd like to have him be hired in as a part-time officer. What would be the hourly rate on that?
I think it starts at 18, maybe 18.50. I haven't quite looked at that yet, but
I believe right now on the books it's 18, isn't it?
I believe that's what it was. I couldn't remember if it was 18 or 18.50, but yeah, I think it's one of those two.
Are you making a motion?
Yes.
$18 an hour and a year's probation?
Yes.
All right, so we'll need a second.
I'll second, Julie.
All right, thank you, Julie. Any discussion?
The only discussion I'd say, he does live fairly close to Winnebago, so he would be available and nearby if we needed him.
That's good to know. If there's no other discussion, a roll call, please.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
Ms.
Sorry,
Morgan?
I couldn't get my phone off of mute. Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Kime?
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Jeff,
All
you'll
right.
have to let me know when you want him sworn in.
Thank you. We'll get a hold of him and get a time frame set up.
All right, thank you. Number 2 is the FirstNet service demo. I believe that is the phone. Am I correct on that, Chief?
Yes, it is. FirstNet approached us and they have, through cooperation with AT&T, set up FirstNet, which is a first responder type system where first responders are supposed to have priority calling. They agreed to send out 2 demo telephones, cell phones. I kept one and used it for a while. The other one went to Chad Insco since he moves around the village a lot more. And I had a brief discussion with him earlier today at a meeting we had with Mr. Eubank, with President Eubank, and it's basically decided we're going to forego any further service or demos with FirstNet. The phones worked okay as far as phone calls, but the question here was the internet service. With Verizon being the leading vendor in this area, the service as far as an internet provider via cellular, which a lot of systems that we use are even backup systems for Chad, I believe, are using a cellular system, and we don't believe that the signal out here from AT&T is strong enough. So those will be going back. They did have a fairly decent price range, but Chad and I both agreed that it's not worth having one system or paying 2 companies to operate systems within the village. So our Verizon service that we currently have is working well for us. It works in all the systems for the police department. I believe it's working well for Chad as well. So just let everybody know those. I just looked at that as a possible alternative for cost savings, but the service isn't up to par to what we need.
Okay, thank you. Number 4 is the civil unrest reimbursement.
What about
That was, I'm sorry, IPSEN billing. Go ahead, Chief.
So this was in the consent agenda. I just didn't want anybody to look past it. IPSEN is our leads and alerts provider. The original thought process is that when we switched over to the new RMS system, which was supposed to be in April, this billing would go away because we would no longer need the services through IPSEN. It would be provided through our RMS provider. Because of COVID-19, that system has stayed online for us. We don't have an alternative at this point. So as you can see, there was a shortage in that billing. It was originally set for $2,000 for that whole line item for the year, and $1,500 had already been taken out prior to my taking over here. So there was only $500 left. We received 2 billings. One billing was the first 6 months, and the second billing was for the second 6 months. We are going to continue to use, well, in fact, we already did use through the end of June, the $1,500 for the first bill, so that was approved for payment in the consent agenda. The only thing I had to do was do a line item transfer from large equipment, which is 0143831, which is leftover money from the building of the new police car, and transfer that into the line item for the IPSEN billing. Now, there is another bill for $1,500, which I don't intend to pay at this point because August 18th is the date set for the go live for the new RMS, so we would no longer need the IPSEN systems. Hopefully that falls into place, and there'll be a little bit left in line item 833. Probably will not cover the total amount that will still be owed, but it will cover some of it. I believe there might be still enough left in the large equipment, the 831 line item, to cover the expenses through the August 18th date.
All right, thank you. Number 4 now is the civil unrest reimbursement. Go ahead, Chief.
So when the Emergency Operations Center was in operation, they suggested we submit costs for any civil unrest. We didn't have really any civil unrest, but we had one protester. We thought it was going to be bigger than what it was. So there's a lot of officers in here working that day when we didn't know what the outcome was going to be. The amount of that reimbursement that I submitted to them was a little over $600, and I'm hoping we can get that back to some extent for all of it. So just so everybody knows that it seems like a small amount, but if we can get it back, that's help us out in any way we can.
All right, staffing. Go ahead with that.
Yeah, as you all know, we're still short-staffed here. This hiring of Mr. Macias will help us a little bit. Because of the short staffing, officers have submitted for vacation time, so there's backfilling from other officers that are working full-time. I noticed that the full-time officer salary is about 1% over budget right now, but hopefully we take into consideration the first 3 months that I was doing the interim chief's job, I was paid hourly. I am now paid salary, so hopefully that'll cut that number down. Over a period of the next few months, that number will drop below the standard for the year. Officers are taking time off, so they are using their vacation time up. So there's no issue with having to figure out a way to give them an option to either build that more or whatever. So there will be some more overtime. Hopefully we can cut it back a little bit with Mr. Macias once he gets up and running. I had another officer that has declined an offer due to some personal issues to come out here and work part-time. But we're still actively looking for people to fill positions. So it may take a little bit of time. It's not the most glamorous job right now. So.
All right, do you have anything else for Chief report?
The only thing I had, I put in there, and I think President Eubank's going to cover it in his reports. It's the Comcast thing. So I'll let President Eubank take care of that.
All right, thank you. That's all for police.
All right, thank you, Stan.
Glad to hear you hired someone, and glad to hear our officers are taking some vacation.
Yeah, it's a well-deserved vacation for some of them. I just wish I could get one.
How's Randy getting along?
I have not heard from Mr. Smith. I need to make a call to him and see how he's doing. Last I heard, he was doing excellent. Lost a little bit of weight. He's, I know his spirits are up. He's chomping at the bit to get back to work, from what I understand.
Yes, I did talk to him, and I did see him. His figure has changed. His tummy has gone down. Okay. Seems a good spirits. Thank you.
We'll move on to the president items, and you've got my report. If you have any questions, let me know. The second item on there is from Azavar. As you know, you probably know they are looking to find sources of money that the village should be receiving that haven't received from various entities, and one of them is ComEd. They sent a letter to me to sign, but I did not want to sign it on behalf of the village until the trustees, you've had a chance to look at it as well, since it is coming from the village. And the tone, I just want to make sure of the tone. I mean, we have a working relationship with ComEd, yet at the same time, if ComEd owes us something, we do need to proceed with receiving any funds that they're holding on our behalf. So I don't know if you've had a chance to read through it. It looks like they've set out that ComEd does have a responsibility, that ComEd supposedly was going to work with other municipalities and paying what they were owed. And now, as of our believes that ComEd is not going to move forward and act in good faith. So they want me to sign the letter from the village, as well as I'm sure other municipalities they represent, so that ComEd will get quite a few letters just telling them that we want them to be fair and pay what they're supposed to pay us. So I just wanted to get your thoughts as to whether you want me to sign this letter, if you don't want me to sign this letter, if you want me to see about making some changes to the letter, or contacting Azavar and getting any additional information.
Frank, Mike McKinnon here. Yeah, the letter is a bit stern, but I guess my question to either you or possibly Sally Bennett is if we resolved any of these local issues that we've had with ComEd over the last few months?
And you're talking about the amount that they swept out of our account, and they were supposed to give us a credit for the LED switchover. Is that what you're talking about, Mike?
Yeah, kind of all of that, but there almost seems to be a pattern around here that yeah, we want to work with them or whatever, but are we getting fair consideration of different activities with these guys?
They have sent billing that indicates that they've closed out some of the accounts. Some of the bills have a big long list of charges and then a zero balance. I have a stack here and I just wanted to spend a day going through them. Frank and Chad and I were supposed to meet right about the time that COVID hit, because we wanted to make sure that we all understood, what light this is, what type of light it is, what should we be paying, that sort of thing. And we still haven't had that meeting, but I think in the meantime, ComEd is saying, okay, well, we're resolving this. We're finally getting around to changing the billing. So I think it's all going to come to a head in the next couple of months.
Well, if we get a favorable response to that, I would like to probably maybe go a little bit of a softer tone. If they've just settled something up that's been outstanding, I'd hate to slam them with the overall organization with another letter when we just finally got some things resolved and we look like we're kind of cross-handing them or something.
Right.
I don't know that the same people that I'm dealing with the billing issues are the same that would see this letter that's asking for past due taxes. It's something that I don't know as to whether the tone would resonate to the same people.
And Sally, can I have you do this? I happen to think about it. Would you be able to contact Azavar and see how many municipalities have actually signed this letter?
Yes.
Just so we know how many are involved with this type of situation.
Well, they told me that they are asking 80 mayors in Illinois to sign. So I'm not sure how many of the 80 have agreed to do that yet. And I didn't know if that's something that your mayor's group would bring up.
Right, and I don't know how many are in the area. You mentioned Belvedere before, might be one of them. But if you could ask Azavar, first of all, how many have responded, and then secondly, if they have a list of all of the municipalities they represent that they want to sign this letter. Because then if I know that it's Belvedere, I can contact Mayor Chamberlain and ask him his thoughts about it, or whomever, maybe close by.
I can do that.
All right. So
I think it would also be helpful if we could find out what exactly the amount is and get a history of it. It makes me uncomfortable having a letter signed by the village just based on Azavar's representation that, hey, we're owed money.
Right.
I just think we ought to know what they haven't done.
We do have that number. It's just not included in this particular letter. This is sort of one of those.
It's a generic letter that all the municipalities can sign because they don't want to put each municipality's amount in that letter.
How much was it, Sally?
I don't remember. Do you, Frank? It was last December when we put that paperwork together.
Yeah, I don't remember offhand either. So I guess, Sally, just make a note to find out from Azavar those things that we just talked about. And then also, when you find that out, send it to all the trustees and also put in the amount that we're looking at receiving.
Okay.
And in all honesty, I don't know if it would be worthwhile to spend a lot of time editing the letter, because if everybody starts to sign it, they're going to read one or two or three and say, okay, this municipality sent the letter. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. Okay, so at this point, we'll get information and then we'll bring it back. And if finance wants to look at this as well, they're welcome to. Otherwise, we can bring it up at the next board meeting.
Okay.
So Kelly, if you can just make a note, we'll want to put this back on my part of the agenda. So item number 2, we'll put back for next month. The third item we have is the Comcast routing service to governmental entities. As Jeff White said earlier, Comcast has contacted us. Joan Sage from there is our liaison, the person from there that's always dealt with the village. And she gave us the good news several months ago that we've been approved to have Comcast extend their service down as far as the village office. Don't know exactly what that means, but they are talking with Windber Sioux Fire Department, and we're hoping to have a telephone conference later in July where Chief Loria, Chief White, I would be involved, and I think maybe a couple others, maybe Chuck Meyer from the fire department, and then 1 or 2 representatives from Comcast would be on this call. And they really want to try and find out what our needs are. I'm guessing internet and also phone service. And I believe, I don't know if Jeff talked to the person or Kelly or someone talked to the person about Sundog that we currently use, and they said, oh, what they have would allow us to do a lot more. We would not be limited as to amount of service and calls and things like that. So Comcast was pretty, I guess they're pretty sure of themselves that they can provide us a lot more than what we're currently getting for our internet and also for our phone usage. So we'll report back after we have that conversation. But Kelly, if you could kind of gather from Chad at Public Works as to maybe what they use in their various buildings, whether they need internet service to any of their particular buildings, and then also what our usage is for telephone at this building and then any other buildings that we may have.
Frank, can I interrupt here just for a second? It's Jeff White.
Yeah.
Pat Pierce is a representative that was contacted me regarding this. And I've asked that Chief Loria, Chuck Myers, President Eubank, Chad Insko, and myself be on the call. I just confirmed with Chad when he's available. I believe I'm going to get a hold of Mr. Pierce tomorrow and see if we can set that teleconference up for July 21st at 3 p.m.
Okay.
So basically, like Frank said, he wants to know what type of services we're looking for. And they pretty much committed to the build out to at least the fire department and the village.
So we'll see where else that might take us. But I mean, the positive thing is Comcast seems to have a more robust service to the businesses that are in Winnebago, and hopefully this will allow for them to expand more. We do have a side note of Willingham still not having any cable or internet service from MediaCom, so that's something that we need to look into as well, as whether MediaCom can go to Willingham, whether Comcast. I talked to Joan Sage about Willingham, and of course there's always a cost to bring it out there, so I'll also ask Pat Pierce about Willingham and if that's something that they can kind of put on their radar that we need to try and get residential service if they're willing to do something like that.
And also, Frank, my understanding is what would the service that would come to the village and the fire department, fiber optic line. So hopefully that would improve our abilities quite exponentially.
Yep. Okay, so let's go on to number 4. I have down when to reopen the village lobby. I did meet with Chief White, Chad, Carrie, Sally Joe, Sally Bennett, and Kelly. Nick, I think, was involved for part of the meeting. We talked about, what services. We talked about what's been happening since we've been closed and have expressed concern about the lobby not being open, and none of them said that they really heard anybody say they've been upset that the lobby is closed. They've all found alternate means to pay their bills. Most of them just coming by and dropping them off into this slot instead of coming into the office. And we talked about how we'd reopen, and the first statement was, well, we have the issue in the front office with the mold up there, and so we really cannot open the lobby until at least that is repaired and all done. And even when that is done, personally, I'm not sure that we need to rush to reopen the village office. I mean, we are partially open. As people need to come to the office and actually do things at the office, we're allowing them, whether somebody's going outside and working with them, whether it's a notarization or anything like that, or if it's someone coming to the police department, you know, we do interact with them, and so we are somewhat open. But we don't really want to open the lobby to the general public to just stand in there and another person come in and stand in there. So what we're looking at is keeping it the way we have for a long time period, and then just going through some procedures of, you know, we talked about everyone coming in and having a temperature taken. So right now, whether you're a trustee, an employee, a visitor, anything, when you come into the building, before you walk into the building, you're going to have your temperature taken. And if your temperature is at a certain level, I think maybe it's 100 degrees is the level, then you will not be allowed in. If it's under that, then you'll be allowed in. We will be wearing masks as you come in. When we are able to sit down, if we are 6 feet apart, then we can take our masks off. And so that kind of would lead to whether we have in-person meetings, and I'll wait to get to that because that's the next item. But in our discussion today, we did come up with some things. We initially were looking at replacing the sliding window as you walk into the lobby so that we can allow people to come into the door, be in the lobby, and put things like you would see at a ticket, a movie theater where you would, you know, slide things underneath the window, have a little cup underneath or whatever that you'd slide underneath. Then we started talking about, I think Chief White came up with this, of having maybe a drawer like you have at the drive-up window at a bank. Right next to the building when you drive up, they have that drawer that automatically comes out. You put your transaction in there, your paperwork in there, and it comes right back into the bank. And we were thinking of having a window that actually faces out to the front porch. And people would just walk up to the window outside like they would be in front of the bank, and there would be a microphone there, and there'd be a speaker there. And we could interact with them outside. There would also be that drawer, so if they're dropping off a payment, but they want to say, here's my cash, I want it stamped, then Carrie can receive it, stamp it, give them their receipt, and they can walk away. Whereas now we're asking them to put it into the slot, and we don't give them a receipt. So we could transact a lot more without into the lobby and still, you know, be protected, but still provide service. So that's one of the things that we thought of. Every person in the room thought that was a good idea, thought it's something that we should move forward and do. We still think we should put a window as you walk into the lobby so that we don't have the sliding window, but we actually have like a piece of plexiglass or whatever it's going to be, so that there's no openness between the person in the office and the person outside the office, except you have that dip in the countertop that they can slide things through, and then we can receive them. And what I've been looking for is, since Public Works Department will be, once we finish negotiating with our insurance company to finally settle our claim, they want to start the work in getting rid of the mold and redoing the front office. That would be the time that we also want to put these items in. So we're looking to get an approval right away tonight to allow up to a certain amount of so that Chad can go out and have 2 or 3 people that we know, contractors that we know in the area, come out and give us a bid, and then we could actually move forward with it without having to come back in August, because they'd like to do the work as soon as possible. So I'm bringing that up for discussion and then also possibly for a vote. I think Chad said we'd be looking at $8,500 to install such a like a window, and also we talked about having the door from the outside of the village building that goes into the lobby have an electronic lock on it, just like we have in the second door that buzzes us in. So that way we can allow people outside to keep the door locked. If we want them to come inside, we can. We don't have to get up, walk around, unlock it, let them come in, and then lock it again after them. So he thought it'd be 8,500. I can't remember if that was with installation or not. But then when we talked about this drawer that would slide out, I think that would add to the cost. So we're thinking that maybe it might be around $1,500 total or $15,000 total. And Chad, you probably know better than any of us. Does that sound like it's in the ballpark?
Yeah, just shooting from general construction practices and previous costs. I think that's kind of the area that it'll be. And again, time is of the essence. We're trying to get the remediation guys in there as fast as possible. And like we talked about in our discussion, we don't want to fix one thing just to tear it back apart later on if we move this direction.
Just so I understand, so this is 15,000 unbudgeted and uninsurable. I mean, this isn't insured or anything. This is all 15,000 unbudgeted expense.
Right. So Julie, let me explain where we might be taking this money from, and that'll help a little bit. And the other thing we talked about is some of this may be COVID related, because we would never think about putting in this drawer and the window and the speaker and the microphone if it wasn't for social distancing and keeping people out of the lobby and protecting us and protecting the people coming to the building. So that may be something that we can get reimbursed from the DCEO, from the Federal Cures Act. And what we would initially
on that.
Sally Bennett had said that we have $10,000 in a fund for the office flooring, and it looks like we will not be utilizing that this year. And I'm looking at the budget expenditures report. I'm just trying to get to that part of the budget. I guess it's general administrative. And I see we have office maintenance, which is 01-41-661. We have $10,000 in there. And I don't know if that's where it's coming from, Sally, but I see that we have a budget balance of $6,618.40 left in that.
I saw that too. That was my intention, that line item, when I mentioned it earlier, having not looked at the budget when I said it.
Okay.
Now, this is Graham. In our finance meeting, you had mentioned needing a new copier machine. Is this the same line item that we discussed it coming out of as well?
I'm not sure.
It's the office maintenance, which I'm looking at it to see if there's other ones that might cover a copy machine. We have office and computer equipment, which is 01-41-512. The budgeted amount was $3,748. We still have $2,148 left, so that's where I would believe we'd have the copier cost come from. So that would be a different one.
No, I think that money's already accounted for.
Well, the problem is, even if we got a budget item somewhere, if what we're talking about due to revenue shortfalls of $50,000 to $100,000, certainly understand why we'd want to do this, but we're going to have to think about this quite hard.
Who's most informed about this reimbursement? I mean, I don't know all the stipulations. I'm happy to get informed, but I'm not informed as of right now.
There was a seminar at 10 o'clock this morning, and I know I think Kelly, you were able to attend, and Mary, I don't know if you had the opportunity or not.
Unfortunately, I was tied up in court. I could not, but Kelly and I have been messaging about getting possibly an audio of that if it's available. There are slides available, so I will be reviewing that.
I did attend. They were not specific. They didn't speak directly to what is allowable. The only thing they did mention of what was not allowable, and that was revenue shortfalls. One thing that they did specify was any payroll related COVID that was related to COVID is reimbursable, but they didn't get into any specifics. So I am waiting for more information.
I think I need more information. I need to know what this design is all about. We are in a shortfall. This is like saying we're going to fly by the seat of our pants, which we're not going to do, because I will not vote yes, or will I vote no. I want to see a design of how this is going to be. We're not going to have somebody stand outside in the middle of winter. We're going to pass a drawer back and forth. That's not going to happen. If the drawer is being done, which is fine for this, it's going to have to be in an enclosed area, which is basically heated and so forth like that, for the safety of both the person who is standing outside and the person who is standing inside. So let's have some more information and some more about the design, and not worry about what fund it's coming out of. Let's get a little bit of head start. One of those drawers is not, they come as a unit, and they come as we put one in Rockford, Illinois at the Dean Foods Company on Kilburn Avenue. They come as a unit, they fit in, and it takes them about a day to do that. We also put bulletproof glass in it. So they're not that expensive, because I know that I was on the committee that put it in. So let's have a little bit more information, because it comes as a unit. The glass, the wall, the unit, and everything else. So it's not the idea you're going to spend 15 grand for it, because I know what they cost. So let's get a little bit more information. Now I'm going to shut up.
I thank you, Don, for that insight, because none of us have dealt with that before. But I do want to, I did find under the Illinois Register, the Notice of Emergency Rules, it's section 700.60, and it talks about eligible and ineligible costs for incurred expenses. And those that are eligible would be medical expenses, public health expenses, including but not limited to expenses for communication and enforcement by local governments and public health orders related to COVID-19, payroll expenses for public safety, public health, so anything related to people we've had to pay responding and mitigating COVID-19, expenses for actions taken to facilitate compliance with COVID-19 related public health measures, which this could maybe fall under that, and then any other COVID-19 related expenses reasonably necessary to the function of government that satisfy the local cure program eligibility criteria. Local governments must document how expenses are related to COVID-19. So you could possibly say that items 4 or 5 could be
yeah, it could be reimbursable. But if you pay for it first, and then you're wondering where the money is going to be coming from, that's a little bit shaky ground.
Well, the reimbursement's probably not going to come for 6 months or more anyway, is it, Frank?
I haven't seen. I know that you have up until, at the time it was December 15th of 2020, any expenses up through then. We're trying to get that changed to where it's December 31st of 2020. But Sally Jo, I don't know if you've heard like reimbursement time like Kelly.
Today on the call, they did say that the first disbursements would begin on August 1st. Once they're submitted on the 17th of July.
Okay.
Well, that's fast.
Yeah. There will be another round of this, I do believe. But the first round is submission by July 17th of eligible expenses with a distribution of August 1st.
Okay.
Sally and I will be working on putting together that this week.
And this project also fixes the moldy wall, or no?
No, this is an
Yeah.
addition to that, I
Sorry.
believe. So we just felt that since they're doing it at the same time, that it would be the good opportunity to add these extra things. Again, it's, last minute. We talked about it today. We're bringing it up tonight. I understand you may not be comfortable with what we have in the budget or don't have in the budget with the design, because we don't really have a design. We just have some ideas of how we want it to be. So, it's up to you guys as to what you want to do, and it may be prudent to wait. It may be a little more time, if we do decide to do it, where we'd have to then have people move back out for a day or two while we do that part of it. But it may make more sense to get the quotes, get an idea, get a layout. I think, Carrie, we had talked about, and you were suggesting, and Chad agreed, that you would probably tape out with painter's tape where you thought the drawer would go, the window would go, where the desks would sit, that kind of thing. So maybe we do need to have that input first and bring it back at the August meeting.
Okay.
So, obviously, you guys, the ones that work there, know much better of what needs to happen, and your guys' safety is very important as well. Some more plans to finalize what this is, and the fact that we want to make sure that it's done all at the same time, because we don't want to destroy the wall and do it all over again. Makes sense. The planning process of getting the drawings and the bids, and you guys talked about the tape, all makes great sense to help us figure out how we can make this work, if that's what we want to do. When is the latest that we could approve this? If we had a special board meeting for 5 minutes to make the approval, are we looking, it has to be done this next week? Or can it happen in 2 weeks? What are we looking at here? Does anybody know?
I think Chad was able to talk about that with us. So Chad, if you don't mind responding.
Yeah, right now I'm working diligently with the insurance, and we're putting leverage on them about how the interior has to be done. It sounds like not this week, but the following week, the mold remediation could start, which would be good because Carrie's going to be out of the office. Again, this just came to my attention, so I was looking while we were talking here at some of the windows, and like I'd forecast at the meeting, they begin around $2,000 and bulletproof ones around $4,000. So simple contractor math is typically double the cost of the components is get you in the game. And there was further talk of a microphone included. That ups the price as well. But long story short, depending on how customizable we would have to go with the window to make it fit, because there's only so many ways it's going to fit with the existing configurations or optional configurations of desks and copy machines and storage containers. I think that we would need to move diligently. Again, this is not a want. This is not a project that, I just got involved with today, but I do think if we could get approval within the next week to 7 days, work week to 7 days, that would be very, very beneficial. Again, I've never been one to spend money that didn't need to be spent. I merely had made the recommendation or the request that could the board approve the spending, because it's going to take time to get the components, get the parts, and get the contractor solidified schedule-wise. So I'll be calling all three contractors we discussed today tomorrow, expecting to see them within the next 2 or 3 days. And, if we need to move quickly, which I think we do, we would need to know what our financial
I have a suggestion for the financing. If we're suggesting $15,000 and we also feel that we could divide that among the different departments or funds, I think we can come up with 5,000 from that line item that Frank mentioned earlier in the admin fund. We could take 5,000 from the O&M contingency fund, which ends in 833. And I don't know how you feel about this, but Officer White mentioned at our staff meeting earlier that because it's not likely that the village will be hiring an officer for the school, that some of that money that's designated in the budget could be used to repair the office.
And what is that line item? Do you happen to know? I can look.
Yeah.
Good.
The only thing I would say to that is that I think
The line item 0143-426.
And I think we were counting on that line item in the budget to offset some of our revenue shortfall. I think we said that specifically a couple of months ago because we thought the likelihood of us hiring that school resource officer was probably zero. So.
And again, this being the safety of the employees as well as the community, and the fact that who knows how long this COVID thing is going to happen. If it only lasted for a month, it may not be worth it, but who knows how long this is going to happen. I haven't had a chance to really study the budget this year. We did have a lot in contingencies previously. I'm not saying we should just go blow all of our savings, but if this is something that needs to happen and we were totally out of money, do we still have enough in savings to cover $15,000? And if we get reimbursed, outstanding, we can put it right back into that. But just as another suggestion.
Right.
I think we could do it.
I know we talked about the 4th of July. We normally put money in there, but that may also be one of those things that we were counting on not spending and helping us with our budget shortfall. So I don't want to necessarily make that suggestion we take out of that line item either. So again, we do have the option to vote tonight. We have the option to have a special board meeting.
If we were to have a special board meeting, what would be, besides the fact that pouring over the budget again, what would we gain by waiting till Friday or Monday?
I think we'd want to do a little bit more work understanding the reimbursement. What are I think there's more information to gather on that.
I guess the other the other thing about waiting is if we could get those estimates back from the contractors, then we can find out, okay, what will it cost to install the electronic door? What would it cost to install the drawer with the special window? How long will it take to do that? And how quickly can they get out here and do that? So I guess that would be a benefit. We would kind of have better numbers to work with.
I agree.
And Chad, you said that we can wait till next Monday and we would still be okay, or were you, does it need to happen sooner?
That's a good question. I mean, I won't have numbers back from the contractors. It won't be a same day number. So right now, just hearing about today, I doubt that I'll have numbers back before Friday for sure. So again, it shaves a little time off, but
I guess, Chad, my thought is we would need to get a response no matter what from a contractor to know which one we would go with, whether we get approval tonight or approval a week or so from now. What's going to really be driving this is when can they come in and do the estimate, and then secondarily, when can they get the estimate back to us? If we know when they can get the estimate back to us, then we can schedule an emergency or a special board meeting. We just need to get 48 hours notice. So if we know that they're going to be here Wednesday and Thursday to give us estimates, then they can tell us, yeah, we'll have it back to you Monday or Tuesday. Then we can schedule the special board meeting Tuesday night if we know it's going to be back by Tuesday. And then, I would imagine that they wouldn't have started the work any earlier than when they can get us the estimate back. So I don't think we would be in a delay position because we would try and respond as soon as we get the bid back.
We just don't want to drag this out too long with the office staff in there with that situation.
Right. No, I understand. I'm just trying to think of how can we time this to where we get the estimate back, and right when we get the estimate back, we have a meeting, and instead of Chad seeing the estimate and talking to me about it and saying, should we go forward, that same day, Chad is coming back with the estimate, and all 7 of us are talking about it, and then we're saying, okay, so we can still tell them later that night or first thing the next morning like we normally would anyway. So I don't think we'll lose any time if we can do that. I think we can respond just as quickly if we know when they're going to get it back to us by. We need to have a definite date they'll get us the estimate back by.
Frank, going back to this whole reimbursement potential, can you assess any probability that this is a reimbursable thing based on the knowledge you have now, or do we just really need to dig a little more?
I think we need to dig a little more, and maybe that's where we need to contact, I think it's Agnes Maznick, who is our rep in the area. We could contact her and say, hey, we're looking at these specific expenses. We're doing it solely because of COVID. We'll get under numbers 4 and 5 of the emergency rules. And if she says, yes, that's the type of thing that we're looking at, then great, we can be more assured. If she says, I really don't know, I'm not the person that looks at it, then we've got an answer to that one. So yeah, I have no personal concept because I really don't know. Reading those things, reading what the language is, I believe I can make an argument in front of a judge to say this is related and this is why. But for COVID, we would never even be considering this. We're only doing it because of that. And that would fit within numbers 4 and 5 of the eligible reasons.
And somehow did you say you came up with a number that the village would be eligible for up to 100,000 plus of reimbursements under this? Was that under this?
We received from the DCEO, each municipality has a breakdown. It's based upon population. And so looking at it, they have Winnebago, we have 3,100 people. They gave us a percentage of allocation. It's $127,926. So the Federal Cures Act has come to Illinois with a bunch of money, and Illinois has said, Winnebago, you can claim up to that amount if you have eligible expenses. If we don't claim it all within the calendar year, we may be able to claim it right after, but we have to do it quickly. Otherwise, the portion we don't claim will go back into the pot, and then other communities may then ask for part of that.
Right.
So I don't know how lenient they're going to be. I know that IML had sent a request to DCO to make the rules more liberal, not so difficult. And they were hoping that the emergency rules would be modified so that it would be easier for a municipality to gain access to the money. Again, I didn't read the Cures Act, so I don't know the representatives and the senators' idea for, do they want this to be used quickly and easily, or do they want to use for a specific purpose? And then again, our state legislature has to weigh in, and DCO has to weigh in as to that how they're going to distribute it. And so I don't know how strictly they're wanting to do it.
Well, I certainly don't want this to delay mold remediation or things of big time health concerns to staff for sure. If I would suggest, can we do a little more digging on this reimbursement? Come back with a vote next week, like you talked about, and decide at that point. To me, it kind of sounds like this would be reimbursable, which would be good. And I don't know if we have other things up to the order of another 100,000 that we're thinking of. That would be nice too, but. You know, whether there's upgrades that would meet this standard would be really neat to kind of figure out. But for this vote, could we do that? And I know I'm not available Tuesday night unless I can get on a cell phone real quick. But
okay, yeah, and I'll just go around. You know, Don, what do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, number one, let me add something else. When we ordered one of these special windows there with the drawer and everything else, the lead time on that, as I can remember, was over 3 weeks. So that's just on the unit itself that you can get. Maybe the people that are gainfully employed by the banking industry may have some more, because that's actually where we got it through. And I can't remember the bank that we bought it through a bank. So it was a regular unit. So you might look in there as I can't remember, and I'm not able to go back to the records because I don't have them there. But that was it. Yeah, I think if we could do that, we could do it within a week. But you have to remember sometime mold and everything else like that needs to be taken care of immediately. They came in and they put that whole unit in, as I can remember. They put everything came in finished, and I think from the time that they came in until the time, I'm going to say 4 days took them to put it in. That's it, done, finished. Everything's pre-finished, and everything worked too. That's amazing. But yes, any day next week, Frank, anytime, I'm available.
Okay, and thank you for that other thought that there may be a lead time in terms of ordering any of the items that we need. So anyway, but the sooner we can order it, the sooner
you can get it going. That's fine. But they made all different types. They made swing open doors like sideways. They made ones that come out and flap down, like the drive-ins that you see now. They had a lot of different options that we had one that I looked at. It came from the center and opened up to the outside, or they kind of folded up. So in other words, it didn't protrude into the walkway or whatever it is. I'll bet it didn't in maybe 3 or 4 inches. We went with the one that opened up down. It came down and opened up, so it slid down. And so in other words, it was not something that came out into the area. Came to the end and then went down. So that's the one there. But that's all. That's all I got.
Okay, well, thank you. Stan, what do you think?
I think he left.
Okay, we've got a caller number 9. I didn't know if that was Stan.
Yeah, I had to call back in.
Yep, thank you, Stan. I thought you might be number 9. So are you okay? What would you like to do?
Well, the mold definitely has to be taken care of, and like Chad said, it's going to take a while for the contractors to come in and give a correct bid. And also, like what Don said, once you get that approval from a contractor, or that we give the approval, then it's going to take a little bit in order to be able to get that product. I'm available anytime to have a special meeting to approve anything that needs to be approved, and it does definitely need to be taken care of.
Okay, and then Mike, what do you think? Are you okay with setting it out and getting more information and trying to get a special board meeting? Mike, are you there? McKinnon? I'm not hearing Mike.
He did say he was on a cell phone, so he might have lost the connection or something.
No, when the train went through here, I put it on mute and I forgot. My apologies. I got two quick comments and then a question maybe that Carrie can answer is, as indicated by, the others, mold remediation should not be held up by this. That's got to get taken care of. Whether we need this particular device or not, I think is questionable. Certainly if there is grant monies available and if we don't use it, they're going to go to somewhere else. If we can pursue it and get funding for that, it may be worthwhile doing. My gut feel is as many of the residents that come in to, pay their bills face to face or whatever, they're kind of looking for the, a little bit of interaction with people. They've got a lot of cases, nothing better to do, so they enjoy doing that. If all of a sudden you're expecting them to be talking to a window, outside in the cold in the winter, I think 80% of that's probably going to go away anyway. So I'm not sure what the value of this overall will be long term. But certainly if it sets us up for the future and we get some grant money for it that other communities would spend otherwise, I could support it in that case. But at this point, I'm not prepared to support it out of our funds.
Okay. And then Lori?
Yeah, I have a comment and then a question. So I guess my only comment would be, it's fine if we get the money to secure, through the grant or whatever to get reimbursed. But these things also require maintenance. And so we just need to be thinking about, we will need maintenance money in the budget. The deal drawers at the banks are breaking all the time. They have heaters in them. The heaters go out. They get stuck. People put, stuff in them they shouldn't. So just, are we going to have a maintenance contract on it? Or are we just going to pay as we go when the thing breaks? Just other things. It's not just the upfront cost. I think we need to be thinking about the ongoing maintenance as well. I'm a numbers person, so I would want to see the bids, and I'd be available for a call anytime next week to approve those bids once we have the numbers. I guess my only question is, do we not have the ability for everyone in the office to work remotely? Or can we relocate?
We talked a little bit about that, and I think Sally Bennett, of course, is able to work remotely. I think Kelly may be able to work remotely, but I don't think Carrie can do all of her functions remotely.
Yeah, I would just think we should, they shouldn't be working in there if there's mold in there, and anyone who can should work remotely. And Carrie, we should, locate her as far away from the mold as we are able until we can get the work completed to make it safe for them to work again.
We talked about Carrie working out in the boardroom area. And again, I don't know if we can hook up the computer out there, if that'll work or not. I did ask Sally and Kelly and Carrie to look at that to see, what they could do. And then also, when we have issues of just covering things, if someone's working at home, can we forward calls there? We talked about that today as well. So I think those are some things that we'll try and figure out, Lori. So, those are concerns that we do need to look at, and we've tried to address those today at our meeting. We'll continue to talk about that. I don't know if Chad was going to be bringing in any type of like this queen or something to try and just section off the office area so that there would be less ability for anything to spread there. Just another layer of protection.
Is anyone against the office being closed during this construction?
We have about 48 hours, 2 days, 3 days or so where really nobody should be in, Kelly should not be there, nobody should be in Sally's office or Kelly's office or the front office, and maybe not even in the boardroom. and allowing for those that are doing the work to be there, because we'll have drywall dust, we will possibly have mold. Really the only ones that we would consider being in the building would be the police department because they're far enough away. So yeah, as Sally suggested, would there be an issue if we had nobody really office staff? Could we possibly, field calls, have them forwarded? Could we, have emails forwarded and check the emails at home? And I think Carrie said that she does have the ability to check her emails if she's at home, but she'd be using her own computer. She would not be using, I believe, a village issued computer. But the idea would be that she could at least monitor emails if any go to her. And if she can't get to the records or information, at least respond and say the village office is closed, I'm working remotely. We will respond, or I will forward you to somebody that can answer your question. We talked about that kind of thing, putting a message on the recorder. People call in, and we might look at closing the office for those 2 or 3 days while that particular work is being done. So,
Hey, Frank.
yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm just going to throw this out there. If she has to be out of that office for a period of time, we could bring her computer back here to the police department. She could use the sergeant's office. That way she would have access to everything she needs to get to.
Okay, that might be a good option. She might even be able to do some police department work too.
Yeah. But no, the connection for all the computer will be back here. It'd just be a matter of moving the computer back here. The only reason she couldn't use ours that's already back here is because it has the encode program on it. And then a phone line of some sort, maybe the main phone line if we get that back here, or maybe transfer it back here to a number back here so she could answer. Just an option.
That would be a good solution.
On that line too, Frank, a laptop for her for remote access and any of our remote access expenses, I wonder if those are reimbursable on this, because we have to be remote because of COVID.
Right. Again, that would be the same logic, I think, Julie. So I think if we do that, we would look at trying to get it reimbursed. Obviously, it's a piece of equipment or something that we would be utilizing after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they would look at that and say, it's not all, just because of COVID, but again, we would not have looked at incurring the expense if it wasn't for it. So that's the kind of thing, Kelly, if we have the opportunity to ask somebody from DCEO, we'd want to know if we're buying equipment initially because we need it. Is that fully reimbursable? Are we looking at a percentage reimbursable? Do they have to look at each, purchase individually to determine that? That would kind of be a question you want to ask.
And it's laptop, which is the key, I think.
There you go. Right.
They did mention that at the meeting of accommodating remote access. So okay. I do think that it would be something that would be an eligible expense.
Yeah.
And if Sally is using VPN connection now for the months during COVID, I think that's reimbursable. Yeah. I bet you we could get more reimbursements. Yeah. We just have to get creative in our thinking.
Yep. No, I think you're right, Julie. I think we do need to look at that.
And Frank, I'll work in conjunction with Kelly because I've been reading the whole time you've been discussing, and some of what they list on here is very, very vague. I looked at Illinois Municipal League, to see if they've put out anything. So I think it's just real important that we get to someone has had to digest this, I would think. So we'll get there.
It's very new, and that's the issue. It's very new, and the IML is trying to lobby for us. And again, I don't even know if the things that I was reading are current. They were the latest emergency rules updated, and they were out there for comment, where you can actually, I believe, comment on them.
Excuse me.
So yeah, if you could if you and Kelly could kind of keep up on that, that would be helpful. But I think you're right, Julie. We should be looking at laptops for Carrie and anybody else, whether Kelly needs to use a laptop. And then as we purchase them, to look at reimbursement, our VPN connection, any other moving around or anything, any expense that we have, just keep a record of it.
For my vote next week, for what it's worth, I'd like to be able to have some kind of a reasonable probability assigned to reimbursement. I'm just going to put that out there. If we can get there. I don't know if we can get there in a week, but we certainly need to be asking more questions and see what we can understand.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. So right now, the idea for opening the lobby is to leave it the way it's been. And then, I'm not sure, when we would actually go back to reopening, but I think that's something we can bring up at the next board meeting. I don't think we're going to be reopened by the next board meeting. In fact, I would look at many months before we actually go back to the way we were before.
I agree.
Closing it. So I just wanted to put it on the agenda, talk to the staff, get some ideas. We'll keep working on this. We'll bring it up every month just to see kind of where we're at. And then that kind of leads me to the next item, number 5. When do you want to have in-person board meetings? And I'm just going to put this out there as a thought and then let each of you weigh in. If we do have in-person meetings where we actually say the meeting will be held at the village hall, and Mary and I talked about this, then you have to have access for everybody to go to the village office, and we don't have the ability right now to have people sitting in the village office. So then what do we need to do? Well, we need to be able to broadcast it. Well, how do you broadcast it? You need to have cameras, you need to have microphones. Well, that's going to be an expense as well due to COVID, because we're going to have to buy cameras, we're going to have to buy monitors, so that we can see other people that are remotely joining. And then we're going to need to buy the microphones for the tables when people are coming in. If we want everyone to be there, we may need to buy plexiglass to put in between where each person sits. And then we also still need to allow people to remotely come in, because we just don't have enough places for people to sit if they want the meeting. And so I think if we can comply with that, then we can have a meeting. I don't think we can have a meeting at the village hall unless we can broadcast it and allow for that communication. So until we do that, we can have it remotely, as we did police committee. But if you're going to physically be at the village office, physically sitting at the table, as Mary suggested, and I think it makes sense, you would have your own device in front of you, and each person attending in the building would have his or her own device in front of him or her, unless we have, again, a camera that can catch everybody, microphones that can catch everybody's discussion. And I just throw that out there so that you guys can kind of decide how you want to move forward with in-person meetings, or continue remotely, or do a hybrid of them. I'm not pushing to have in-person meetings. I like the fact that we do them remotely. But again, I want the trustees to be able to weigh in as to what they think we should do for the village meetings.
I'm fine with keeping them remote as long as we can.
I would agree until we figure out what's going on more in the world. We can just continue with this as it seems to be working.
I would like to get back to in-person meetings sooner rather than later, but with the current obstacles in front of us, I think the course of action at least for the next couple months would be continue remote meetings.
This is Don. I agree with most people. Keep them remote until we know that it's safe, and that we don't have to jump over hoops or jump through hoops to get where we want to be. We can do it easier remotely.
Yeah, this is Lori. we've been back to our office now for only a week, and we've been practicing social distancing and wearing the masks and extra cleanings, and we've already had 2 potential exposures in a matter of a week. So I think we need to stay remote for now.
Oh my goodness.
Good to know.
Yeah, this is Stan. Just keep it remote. We don't need the extra expense in order to be able to broadcast or on TV or microphones or plexiglass or anything like that. Just keep it the way it is until the AOK is ready to go for in-person meetings.
So this is supposed to be okay through phase 4, Frank? Is phase 4 when then we have to have regular meetings, or?
Right, we're in phase 4. What the statute says is if the governor has declared, I believe the term is an emergency, then as long as there's an emergency, the statute allows us to meet remotely. It's when the governor doesn't declare an emergency that then we're no longer allowed to meet remotely. The governor has to issue that every 30 days because an executive order or declaration, I believe, is only good for 30 days and he has to renew it. So we will need to monitor that and make sure that he continues to do that, and then we can continue to meet remotely.
This is Lori. I think, if we find that stuff such as cameras and microphones are reimbursable under this grant, I think we need to look into getting that pricing, because even, let's say in 2 months, he says we're not an emergency anymore, we have to go back to in person. I think it would be beneficial to still have that ability for people to attend who maybe can't come to the village office. It may prompt, additional residents to, participate or listen in, whereas maybe now they don't, because they don't want the inconvenience of, leaving their house, or maybe they're stuck at work, or, I could see some benefits to it, long term, not just for COVID. Particularly, like they said, if it's going to be covered, we can get reimbursed for it. I think we should at least look into the pricing on some of that equipment.
And Lori, we did talk about that. Kelly had even suggested that we look into monitors and that we look into a camera. And so I think Kelly's going to go ahead and price those out, or she can look at those and get us some estimates. And then, as you said, we can look at trying to get reimbursed because we would not be going through this expense but for the COVID pandemic. And it would allow us to use this for the future, where it is my intention that we would have a go-to meeting from here on out, so that even if we are back in person, it would allow for someone that, whether it's Mike McKinnon on a business trip and he wants to log in on his business trip, which he's allowed to do, now he can do a go-to meeting. If Joe Citizen wants to log in at home and see what's going on, that person can log in and see what's going on at the village. Also, we can look at the meetings after the fact. Mary, Kelly, other people have actually looked at the recorded meetings just to make sure what was said. We will now have a recorded meeting that people can look at after the fact, which is also beneficial. So, yeah, I see us using the go-to meeting, or whether we change providers, but some type of video and audio for every meeting here on out.
I did contact Dean. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did contact Dean right after our meeting this afternoon, and he is coming back with a quote on what we would need.
Okay. Yep. Just let us know what that's going to be. And
I'm sorry.
Just go ahead and let us know what that quote is when you get it.
Yes.
And if we're thinking of what can we could say the go-to meeting charge, whatever we purchase to have go-to meeting would also be reimbursable, because we wouldn't have purchased this if it wasn't for COVID-19. We never had any intention of doing it. So that's something that should be reimbursable as well. And any cameras that we bought, and I think Nick had asked me about a camera, and I'm actually using one of my own, but any cameras that we've purchased would also be reimbursable. So, so we'll go on to item number 6, and that's appointment of Trustee Graham as the Finance Committee Chairman. Before Jeremy left, he was the Finance Committee Chairman, and now that he's back, I believe that the other 2 people on the committee are in agreement that Jeremy can come back as the Finance Chairman. So as the village president, then I'm going to say thank you to Julie for stepping in and taking over that position. You've done a great job, and I appreciate you stepping up and doing that. And now we can have Jeremy come back in. So officially, I'll appoint Jeremy for the rest of his term to go ahead and be the finance chairman. And for number 7, we have the discussion of possible real estate purchase by the village. This is something I think that we should probably go into executive session. We have 3 properties that we will be talking about, and we'll need a motion to go into executive session to talk about the possibility of real estate purchase.
Do you want to do number 8 first?
Pardon me?
Do you want to do number 8 first to complete the meeting?
Sure, why don't we go ahead, Sally, and we'll do future meeting dates first.
Public Works? Are we going to have first of all, are we going to have committee meetings or committee of the whole?
Right, and that's what I was going to ask. What do you trustees want to do? Do you want to do a cow meeting next month, or do you want to do your regular committee meetings? That's your preference.
Let's do a cow meeting.
All right, we have 1 vote for a cow meeting.
I would prefer regular meetings.
Okay, so we have a regular meeting.
Regular committee meetings.
Lori, Julie, Mike, any?
Yeah, this is Lori. With it being over the phone and it's hard sometimes to follow, having those longer cow meetings is, I think, more difficult remotely. I know I find it more beneficial to have a shorter meeting when you're doing it remotely. So I would think the individual committee meetings, and we could look at doing the cow meetings again once we're maybe all able to see each other and be in person again.
This is Mike. I'm good either way. It sounds like the consensus is for individual meetings, and if that's the case, Public Works would be the first Monday of August at 4 o'clock.
So let's go ahead with the individual committee meetings and do it that way.
Okay. Police?
Be determined.
Finance?
TBD.
Community Development?
To be developed.
What?
To be determined.
Liquor?
July 16th is the next one, but it's going to be canceled. So we don't have.
Okay. All right. Air and Water will be before the August 10th meeting if needed. Admin?
We don't have one yet.
Trustee is still the 15th?
That's going to be canceled, and the next one would then be October 21st.
Tech Pride Pass, do we have anything?
I did not receive anything after the last meeting, so I'm not sure when that's going to be. I will get an update, but I'll let you know.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll go into executive session, and how we'll do this is we will make a motion to go into executive session. If that's approved, then those of you that will not be in there, so it'll be the trustees, it'll be Sally Huggins, and it'll be Mary Gaziano. I don't think we need anybody else. involved with that. What I would do is have the rest of you either log out or I will log you out, and then I'm going to lock the meeting. So now if you want to come back in, you're welcome to come right back in after I lock out the meeting and just wait. When we come back in, then I'm hoping I'll do that correctly. I'll unlock the meeting, and then you'll be able to join back into the meeting at that point. We don't have too much else on the agenda, but you never know what may be discussed for new business. So we'll try it that way. Hopefully it works. If any of you have a problem and you need to get a hold of me, I've got my phone in front of me. I can see your text. So, you can text me if you've got an issue coming back in. So at this point, I would ask if we could have a motion to move into executive session to discuss possible real estate purchase.
So moved, Trustee Kimes.
Do we have a second?
Who?
Trustee Kimes, Don Kimes.
Okay.
Second, Julie.
Second from Julie. All in favor, or no, roll call, please.
No, roll call.
Roll call.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Kynes,
Yes.
Mr. Malagranda,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Ms. Morgan.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording right now, and then we'll start up the recording. Bye, Sally.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, and we're back into regular session. Meeting is unlocked, so that way those that were not allowed in the executive session are allowed to come back in. I don't see anybody else that's come back in. So we'll continue with the agenda, and we have new business. Do we have any new business to come before the board?
Before we cover that, I don't think you said, but we went back into regular session, I believe at 9:52.
Thank you, Mary.
That's
Yep,
what I
it was
wrote down.
PM on July 13th, 2020.
Okay, go.
So if we have no additional new business, if we could have a motion to adjourn.
Mike
Jeremy
McKinnon
Graham.
moves. Adjourn.
All right, so Mike McKinnon with the motion. Do we have a second?
Jeremy Graham will second.
Adjourn.
Thank you, Jeremy. We have a second from you. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, that's approved. Thank you, everybody.
Night.
Thank you,
everybody.
Ray. Aye.